Giannis is a champion. Brett and I were wrong with our NBA series picks. The Bucks got it done in 6. There was no Game 7 needed. This is episode 152 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always. Quick look at how we did last episode. I went 3-4. I went 0-3 in my NBA. Tough way to end the season, but it was great watching Giannis put up a 50-piece. Go get a 50-piece after he won that championship as well. And I lost my pick of the pod. My White Sox -1.5 did not hit for me. And I had a chance, Brett, didn't I? I mean, your game got postponed.
You could have caught a half game, Higgins. Instead, you drop a half game. That's why they call me Bill Belichick. You know, I'm a mastermind. I'm playing chess while you're playing checkers. I knew this was the week to pick the rain out, so I nailed it. I did get 2 wins on the board back in the winning column, Higgins. Both my MLB picks that played came to fruition. And then, yeah, you mentioned it. The Suns did not come through for us and force that Game 7, but that's okay. I only placed a half unit on that bet. I had the Suns series bet at plus 330. That was a value play for me, Higgins, because I knew if the Suns won Game 6, I was not getting plus 330 ever again. So sometimes you got to take those shots, right?
Yeah, I got hit with the Suns money line pick that I had. And hey, when we made our podcast episode, I didn't know that Scott Foster was going to be one of the refs. And if I did, I'm joking. It's just an out that everyone's been using, but I don't believe that. No. Okay, let's get into our Beginner's Boulevard before we jump into the MLB. We're going to talk about this term called steam, and it's a quick change on a line due to heavy wagering. This could be either a syndicate, which is a group of bettors coming in really heavy on a line. It could be a whale coming in or a sharp that changes the line. Or it could be news or information that forces this heavy wagering, trying to get good value before a line changes.
Yeah, it's usually, coming in late, a little steam on the game, and those odds start moving quickly, Higgins. So now you know what people are talking about when they mention steam. They're talking about the odds changing on the game due to a big wager or quite a few wagers coming in a certain way.
Yeah, you think of steam, you think of heat, got to think of coming in hot to the window and coming in heavy as well. Let's jump into our picks that we have going into. Pretty much we have MLB from now until football starts. However, we will have some UFC and some golf, and we'll entertain ourselves with some other picks here and there. Olympics are coming up as well. We're going to jump into our MLB picks, though, right now, Brett. And we have a few games, 8 of the 9 games we have lines for. And you and I found a few lines on each of them. I like this Cubs-Cardinals series that I've seen so far. They're playing it out right now as we're recording this episode, and the Cardinals are down with Adam Wainwright on the mound. Well, tomorrow, which would be Thursday for those that are listening, it's Adbert Alzolay versus Kwang Young Kim. Potentially, that's the probable starters that we're seeing right now. And if those are, I like Kim. He has impressed me so far in his outings. At -120, I think that's fantastic value. And you and I have talked about this Cubs team. They're obviously sellers at this deadline right now. I don't know how much they're playing for. This team doesn't seem that enthused, although they are winning on Wednesday night. Slight 1-0 lead. Not a very offensive-heavy game, but I think the Cardinals will rebound on Thursday and get the win.
Higgins, I think you're safe on this one, but just a word to the wise, like for our listeners. I would wait for lineups to come out over the next week and a half here. Just with the deadline lurking, you never know if there's going to be a late scratch or someone that you're not expecting, especially with a team like the Cubs. We saw Chris Bryant get taken off the field the other night, Higgins. Twitter exploded. Thinking that he had been traded, that a trade rumor was about to break, something like that. Turns out he had a slight injury, actually. So, these things are going to heat up over the next few days, Higgins. But again, being on the Cardinals side in this game, I'm not concerned for you. But just something to keep in mind when wagering over the next 10 days here.
You bring up a very good point about waiting till the lineups come out as we approach this deadline. So it's a prompt opportunity to ask you, Where do you go for lineups as soon as they drop? I go to Twitter. Actually, I found this Twitter handle called Fantasy Labs. They do starters and outs for every single sport, and they have a different handle for each sport. It's very useful for NBA, MLB, NFL, even. And I used it today with the Dodgers lineup coming out. Actually, pretty decent with a pretty decent time for a late start game like that.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great tool I didn't even know about, Higgins. Typically, what I do is if it's a game I'm interested in betting on, I go to Twitter, I type in the team name, and I look for their tweet with the lineup out there. Because if it's from the official Twitter handle, I know it's the real one, and I
That's
can
verified,
roll
yeah.
with it. Yeah, exactly. So I just want to make sure it's the right thing I'm looking at. I don't need the most information. But yeah, no, the tool you brought up, I'll definitely have to check that out.
And they are verified by Twitter as well, so there is some legitimacy there as well. I also have another game that I did pick in this, Brett. I actually have two others. I mentioned the Giants Dodgers. Those lineups came out pretty early on Wednesday. They're playing on Thursday night with Anthony DeSclafani versus Walker Bueller. And I'm going to go and buck the trend here, Brett. I'm taking the over 8. I know both of these guys have ERAs in the twos, but both of these lineups have shown that they are more than powerful, more than potent, and they are willing to show up in these late innings to go and get these wins. The Dodgers had a walk-off home run on Tuesday night. On Monday night, the Dodgers were able to get some insurance runs late to help seal a victory even, so I'm confident that they're going to get over 8 between these two teams.
Yeah, and Desclafani can give up a long ball. He has been known to do that. So definitely not an impossible play here, Higgins. And you're right. Who knows what happens when we head over to the bullpen? These lineups have hit the ball really well. Just again, something to note. Brandon Crawford, who has played well above the back of his baseball card this year, Higgins, is out of the lineup for the Giants. On Thursday. He's on the IL. He was placed on the IL on Monday. So that's a big loss for the Giants. I haven't really followed them too closely this week. I know they've been playing the Dodgers through the start of the week. So they should have some experience facing them. They should be a little more used to playing without Crawford in the lineup. And I hope for some runs for you.
Yeah, the Dodgers got a 7-2 win on, or sorry, the Giants got a 7-2 win on Monday. The Dodgers got a 8-6 win on Tuesday, and then they're playing right now as we are recording, Brett, and it's early enough that it's not even worth mentioning the score because there's a lot of game to be played in that Giants Dodgers game. But over 8 with lineups that powerful on either side, I think that's a pretty good pick, even with those aces on the mound.
Yeah, I'm with you, Higgins, but we've got one more game to talk about. Really, we should probably talk about two games because the Red Sox and Yankees get together, so people are going to want to know about that one. But Athletics Mariners, you and I each have a bet. Since you've given two bets already, I'll let you breathe a little bit, Higgins. Have some
I appreciate
alcohol,
that.
have some water. Yeah, exactly. Go get a snack, have a smoke, whatever you need, Higgins. I'll take over here for a little bit, but Sean Manaea and Chris Flexen are projected starters at this point, Higgins. And that over 8 looks juicy to me. It's at minus 110 in Oregon right now. It's not out yet here on the East Coast. But luckily, I know some guy in Oregon might be able to bet it for me. But yeah, that over 8 looks really low. Chris Flexen, not a great pitcher, Higgins. And Sean Manaea does not go deep into ball games. So I like the opportunity for 8 runs to hit here. And I also like the opportunity to push. God forbid it's a 5-3 game. You would hate to see that, but at least I don't lose anything.
Hey, Sean Manaea is the more notable name in this matchup, but you got to put some respect on the name of Chris Flexen this year. The man is 9-3 at least. He has at least grabbed some good wins. Manaea is 6-6 though. I'm saying this even though I am backing Manaea. I believe in him. I am on your side with what you were just saying there. I am taking Oakland on the money line at minus 120 because Oakland has actually been playing fantastic, and I would look at them in the run line in this scenario because it is plus 125 value. But I heard a stat on a broadcast watching the Athletics the other day. And Brett, did you know that the A's lead the league in single run games?
Hmm.
Not, or sorry, in games that were won or lost by a single run.
Yeah, and one-run ball games. Okay, yeah,
One run
that's
ball
that's
games.
an interesting stat. A lot of that comes down to a bounce here or a bounce there, so those games can really end up going either way, Higgins.
And so that's going to take me away from Oakland at -1.5 at least for a little bit so far this season. I'm going to go with them on the money line at -120. I like the pick. I like the play as they head up to Seattle to start this series up there. And you know what? They've been playing really well. Matt Olson, he's coming out of the home run derby looking like he may have fixed his swing a little bit. And if he gets on fire, he's already leading the team in all categories. How much more fire can he be?
Yeah, I mean, talk about guys hitting the ball well coming out of the home run derby. Pete Alonso's hit a few home runs. I believe Juan Soto hit like five in his first four games, something like that. So a lot of these guys swinging a hot bat coming out of the All Star break.
They really are. And Brett, before we do jump out of the MLB, you did mention the Yankees Boston. So let's talk about that. The Red Sox are hosting the Yankees as New York travels up the coast into Massachusetts. We got Montgomery versus Houck, and this is just Houck's second start of the season. A bullpen guy that the last time he came out, he pitched 3 innings and got a save. So obviously a bullpen day for the Red Sox, but it's an interesting line with an over-under of 10 and the money line having Boston at a slight favorite at -115. I don't really know what to make of this line right now. I'm going to wait till I see some lineups, I think.
Yeah, the truth is, Higgins, Boston deserves to be the favorite just based on where these teams have played this year.
Hmm.
Boston leading the division, the Yankees floundering in like third or fourth, depending on the day with the Rays. Or the Jays, excuse me, not the Rays. Um, but yeah, I think Jordan Montgomery is probably the pitcher you'd be more comfortable backing in this matchup, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I don't know if I could pull the trigger on the Yankees even with the plus money on the money line, but it's gonna be tempting tomorrow night as we get closer to that game, Higgins, because when I see Tanner Houck starting and he's minus money, I'm like, who the heck is who? I don't know him between him and my doorknob. Like,
Well, just something to note of the Yankees so far this year. They're 38 and 55 against the run line, actually. As underdogs, they're just 7 and 4, so it's not a space that even the books are too comfortable at placing them at. So we'll see what those lines look like in the morning. But I really think I'm going to wait till I see some lineups before I place a bet on this game. But I will probably be on this game because how can you not?
right? It's too much fun.
Absolutely. Let's jump into some money line magic, Brett. And I don't know if you want to whip your phone out or not, but I was texting you on Monday night about your boys, the New York Mets, as they were playing and they were down 7-3 against the Reds, but it was early in the game and they would have some magic going on in what would turn into an extra inning affair.
Yeah, no, what an exciting finish, Higgins. You shoot me a text saying, "Oh, the Mets come back from down 7-3." I said, "LOL, why are you watching this game?" You're like, "Just a hunch I had with a little plus money value." What was that plus money value, Higgins?
I think it was like a 375,
I
425,
think I
something like
think
that.
435 is what I think I see here. So plus
Yeah, some great value.
435 Higgins hits me with, and I'm like, you crazy SOB. But he knew because the Mets would hit 7 home runs, Higgins. They'd win this one in the 11th inning. Now, in typical Mets fashion, you'd think 7 home runs, you're going to walk away with this game pretty easy. No, we played 2 extra innings, Higgins. We hit all these home runs, but we let them score just as many runs.
Well, Edwin Diaz blew his third straight save, the first time in his career he ever had 3 consecutive outings with a blown save. Only gave up 1 run, though, so it ended up going into extra innings. But, Brett, let's talk about my timing with that bet real quick because I placed that at the commercial break after the bottom of the third when it was 7-3. In the top of the fourth is when New York hit a 3-run home run and made it 7-6, and all of a sudden came back, and I was instantly having buyback options of like a 10 for 16, 10 for 22. It was instantly becoming quite the affair. And you said it, 7 home runs. We jump into the extra innings here, and I'm sorry, I said it was a 3-run home run in the fourth inning. It wasn't. Conforto hit a 2-run home run. Alonso hit a single that scored Nido, and then Smith hit a home run in the top of the fifth that tied it up at 7. And that's when I told you it was tied again. And there was a lot more game to go, but we're going to jump to the extra innings. And in the bottom of the ninth, Winker hit the double that scored him, sent him in the top of the 10th. McCann hits in this runner from second. This runner from second is an over's best friend if you go to extra innings. I swear to God. And then in the bottom of the 10th, the same thing happened. You hit a single, guy in second scored, runner moved into a scoring position, but they ended the inning, went into the top of the 11th, and then the Mets, they just went off again.
Yeah, we put a few runs across the plate in the top of the 11th. Actually, the Reds put a few across the plate in the bottom of the 11th, just not enough. So, uh, the runs did not stop coming in this game, Higgins. The clock just ran out on Cincinnati, I think, because no pitcher was really getting outs or clean innings. There were a ton of runs. I believe the final score was 15-11. Am I looking at the right score?
Yep.
Yeah.
15-11. Could have been a football game, potentially. A weird football game, but it could have been a football game.
Maybe like the first quarter of a really bad basketball game. Who knows?
There were 15 total pitchers between the two teams. They had to lean on those bullpens pretty heavily, too.
Yeah, it was. It's been tough for the Mets. Marcus Stroman actually saved them on Wednesday by pitching 8. So thank you again, Marcus Stroman, for being amazing.
And that's going to conclude our long MLB segment, I think. Before we jump into the second half of our episode, though, today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast, The Next Best Bet, in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Now, on to the NBA, Brett. It just finished. Giannis won that game, fixed his free throw shooting and everything in Game 6. Bucks go on to win 4 straight and win their first title in over 50 years. And we already have lines for next year, Brett. It's not too early for the sports books, though. But the Bucks, is there value in them going back to back? I mean, they're at plus 900. They're the third favorite at the sports books right now.
Higgins, here's my God's honest take. There is no value in betting these lines today. But it's nice for us to talk about. You know, it's fun to see that the Nets are the favorite, that the Bucks are plus 900 behind the Lakers. The Warriors are up there, tied with Phoenix or ahead of Phoenix, depending on where you are. So, you know, there's some interesting things to look at, but we don't know where Dame Lillard's playing next year. We don't know where Kristaps Porzingis is playing next year. We don't know who's running with Luka Doncic. We don't know who's running with the Clippers. Is Kawhi going to opt out? Well, I mean, Kawhi's not playing anyway, but, you know, just so many things up in the air, Higgins. Why would you bet any of this stuff before the draft, before free agency? It makes no sense to me. But I guess if you had some inside information and knew where Dame Lillard was going, text me first, and then we could bet these markets.
So I was looking at these lines, and I agree. It's way too early. I'm not going to bet a single one of them. But the only thing that I can think is if you look at some of these bottom row ones in this Oregon Sportsbook, they're valued at like plus 50,000. Let's look at the Thunder, for example. Yeah, their team right now, the roster doesn't have much in terms of an expectation to win it all next year. But that team has all the first-round draft picks in the world. If they truly wanted to, they could sell out, go get Damian Lillard, try to do something, try to finagle something, and have a realistic expectation going into the season. And I'm not even saying you keep that. You sell that ticket, you buy back when it's down to like plus 15,000 instead, and you make a slight profit in a few months. But it's way too long out. I'm not putting money down for an entire year out from right now. I'm not that type of bettor that looks at these too seriously too early. But it is still amusing that literally Giannis goes and puts up a 50 piece. The Bucks win last night, and not even 24 hours later, we already have odds on the entire next NBA season if we wanted to bet.
Of course, we've got the odds, Higgins, but I do have some bets that you can cash in on in a week or lose your money on in a week. We'll find out in about a week. But my NBA draft bets, I've been picking them as part of our daily show that I do for work, Higgins. I've been coming on air, helping our guys out, giving some NBA draft betting advice. And here are some of my best bets from the week that I've already made. So I'm going to make them on the podcast now, and we can hold myself accountable.
Okay, and just for some reference for those that are listening that may not be familiar, you've worked with some NBA teams, you've scouted and done some stuff, so you know what you're looking at a little bit more per se. Maybe I don't know. I'm talking out of my ass a little bit if I'm trying to put up some NBA draft picks. That's why I don't bet on those really. I may know the NFL draft, but I don't know the NBA draft like this at all.
I like to think I'm informed, but I don't know everything, Higgins.
Okay.
I've taken place in some meetings. I've been out of the league for a little bit now, but I still have friends that are working in the league. Still seeing a lot of these guys play, know a little bit about them. So I'm informed, but I'm not the master or anything like that. I have no secrets, right? But anyway, I'm gonna give out some good picks here that I really like. Josh Giddey is a 6'8" point guard coming over from Australia, Higgins. He averaged 10, 7, and 7 in the NBL this year. He actually averaged, decimal points after that, but that's not important.
Yeah.
LaMelo Ball in the same league averaged 17, 7, and 6. So similar stats, similar body type, similar build. Josh Giddey's very skinny. Will need to put on some weight, muscle, whatever you want to call it, in the NBA. But 18 years old, 6'8" point guard, clearly a great passer and rebounder for his position. Can score a little bit, shoots it a little bit too. So I got him going in the top 10. I actually took this on Tuesday, Higgins, plus 156. It has jumped all the way up to plus 116. I like to think I moved that line, but I know I didn't. Thank you for supporting my dreams, Higgins.
I think that you moved that line. I mean, he's still sitting outside of ESPN's top 10 best available. He's sitting at number 11 right now. So everyone that moves that line, they're on the Brett Levy bus. I believe it.
They're on the Brett Levy bus. A guy I think Josh Giddey could jump over in the draft, Davion Mitchell. He is currently projected to go in the top 10. Unfortunately, Higgins, I don't see a 22-year-old 6'1" point guard going in the top 10 of the NBA draft. We've seen a lot of upperclassmen that go in the lottery get hit hard coming out of the gate. Buddy Hield was unbelievable in college. He did not make it to the trade deadline of his rookie year for the team that drafted him. And, Buddy Hield's a fine pro. He's nothing, he's not the out of the world All-American that he was at Oklahoma, but he's a double-digit scorer in this league, a knockdown shooter, a good wing player, absolutely deserves his minutes. I just think it's really hard to invest in a 22-year-old 6'1" point guard in a top 10 pick. I think you take more upside players there. So with all due respect to Davion Mitchell, I'm taking the over 8.5 at minus 164 on him. A guy I really love, Higgins, in this draft, a person who I think is a top 5 player in this draft. And actually, when I spoke about this pick earlier today on the show, it was listed at 5.5. Now it's all the way up to 7.5. So I'm taking it with this new value, Higgins, under 7.5 for Jonathan Kuminga. This is an 18-year-old kid, Higgins. He should be a senior in high school. Instead, he is in the NBA draft. He was the number one recruit in his class until he reclassified and then turned pro. But Jonathan Kuminga, he is an explosive wing. He fits the mold of the NBA. He's very raw, really young prospect. He's kind of the Giannis mold, right? As this raw piece of clay that you can mold and develop and turn into something special. So I think a team's going to fall in love with Kuminga and his upside. And a guy who had a tough season at Tennessee, Keon Johnson. Actually, Tennessee had two stud freshmen, Higgins, two five-star recruits came in. Both came in off the bench all season long, Keon Johnson and Jaden Springer. It was a weird year at Tennessee because they had so many talented upperclassmen still on the roster. But I think that kind of gets swept aside. I think the NBA scouts look at Keon Johnson. They see the 2 extra inches on his wingspan as a wing defender. They see the athleticism. They see what he can do in the open floor, and he can defend on day one in the NBA. I think Keon Johnson finds his way going to probably the Orlando Magic at pick 8, but possibly even the Golden State Warriors at pick 7. So I'm going to lean under pick 8.5 for Keon Johnson at plus 164, the exact opposite of Davion Mitchell. So maybe those two do the little flip flop. Giddey gets into the top 10 for me. Kuminga goes top 5, and we're looking good, Higgins.
I love this Kuminga pick, honestly. I mean, you look at his measurements right now. You said a Giannis type. He's 6'8", 220 at 18 years old. Giannis, when he was drafted at 18 years old, he was 6'8", under 200 pounds. So you got Kuminga coming in a little bit more built, maybe a little bit more basketball floor ready than Giannis was out the gate the first year. But you saw what that did for Milwaukee by drafting him and trusting in him and believing in him. He went on to become a 7-footer that's 240 and just the Greek freak. And you got Kuminga here who's 6'8", 18 years old. He's not done growing. There's no way he's done growing. Come on. There's no way he's done growing. I think he's a great wing player now. Who knows what he can grow into being? He could grow into being a 7-footer. He could grow into being 6'9". Who knows? But then your shooting guard picks, I like those as well. Maybe they do get flipped. I'm also looking at Keon Johnson. Maybe all he has to do is just get drafted before Bouknight, who's currently projected around the number 8 spot.
Yeah, him and Bouknight are interesting prospects, right? They both have flaws in their games. Bouknight didn't shoot particularly well from the college 3, but is probably one of the best scorers in the draft. Higgins averaged over 18 points a game at UConn. When he was in the lineup, UConn was a perennial top 25 team. When he was out of the lineup, UConn struggled significantly. But again, I like Keon Johnson, just his ability to defend right now. I think, to get drafted in the NBA, everyone can score. Not everyone's going to be a quote unquote scorer, but all of these guys are talented enough to score the basketball, find a way to create buckets. Keon Johnson still averaged over 10 points a game as a freshman. I think he averaged something like around 11, but his assists were low, his rebounds were low. He's got to do a little more. He's got to be active on the defensive end to earn his minutes, but high upside guy, again, a 5-star recruit just a year ago. So lots of talent there. Not to take anything away from Bouknight, who, again, elite scorer, struggled to shoot it from 3 a little bit. Maybe that's his red flag. Maybe if, Keon Johnson outshoots him at a workout, that's all it takes, right?
Absolutely. It's tons of talent, and maybe just comes down to falling on the right day. That's can decide certain picks sometimes in the NBA draft. Let's jump into a new category that also has tons of talent, though, and is about to start, Brett. We got the Summer Olympics. They actually technically already kicked off on Wednesday. The USA women, they lost 3-0 to Sweden, but guess what? I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I put together a parlay right before this, Brett. It's men's basketball gold, women's basketball gold, and women's soccer gold. You combine them together, you get plus 215. The men's basketball and the women's basketball, they're both significant favorites. The women's basketball is like minus 1,100. The men's basketball is like minus 400. The women's soccer, because of the loss to Sweden today, they actually fell to like plus 120. They're still the favorites, but they're at plus 120 right now. And they're still in the group stage. I'm not really too worried about the rest of their group with Australia and New Zealand. So they can get out of that. They'll get into the knockout stage just fine, and they'll be able to keep on pushing through. I like the value of that. 3 gold medals at plus 215 for 3 sports that I think the USA should compete rather strongly in.
Yeah, well, hopefully they bring it home for more than just you, but I'll be rooting as a big supporter of the US of A, Higgins.
Yeah, there's also a bunch of other lines that you can bet. I mean, you can take the USA to just be the outright of have the most gold medals, the most overall medals. There's not a lot of value there, though. They're minus 1,200 and minus 1,000, respectively. You can also bet on the over-unders of how many gold medals or total medals an individual country will have. That sounds hard to me, Brett. I haven't really tried looking into that too hard, but that sounds very difficult to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that will be a hard pass for me, Higgins. I think one I'm interested maybe in might be some of the baseball or the golf. We mentioned the golf last week, or last episode rather, but yeah, I think some of these sports that haven't been around as long might pique my interest. I'll watch men's basketball. I love men's basketball, but like this women's soccer game that you spoke about earlier, Higgins, do you know that kicked off at 4 a.m. Eastern time? I am not tuning in to women's soccer at 4 a.m. East. I'm not tuning into men's basketball at 4 a.m. Eastern time. I'm not tuning into anything.
Well, we were talking about this last episode. It's a 16-hour time difference for you. It's a 13-hour time difference for me. 4 a.m. for you is a noon start for them. That's middle of the day. So we're not going to get into these primetime games quite yet, but as we get closer, we're going to probably get a little bit more favorable times. Maybe some weekend morning gold medal matches. Maybe.
Maybe
I'm
that'd be
hoping so.
nice. That'd be nice. I'll take those.
Let's look at something that's a little closer, though, also, Brett. I want to jump into the UFC fights that are going on Saturday. I know that I'm the one that constantly brings these up. They don't always stay on your radar, but this is actually a good card coming up on Saturday, Brett. It's also a UFC fight night. It's not a pay-per-view. It's just on ESPN Plus, but it's got a really good main card, in my opinion, that has 2 really good women's fights and not the title fight, but it's a card fight. So it's going to be 5 rounds between TJ Dillashaw and Corey Sandhagen. And that's going to be TJ Dillashaw's return to the UFC after being caught and serving a 2-year suspension for a banned substance. And I think he's deservedly catching a lot of hate for it. But because of that, there's also a lot of really good value. I think plus 160 for Dillashaw is a little disrespectful. We just saw last week Misha Tate. She came back into the ring after 5 years of not fighting. She did just fine. She actually got a finish and came back in spectacular fashion. TJ Dillashaw's 35, 2 years off. I think he's going to come back fresh, come back renewed. From everything I've been seeing in terms of how he's been handling the press, too, he seems pretty angry and seems pretty ready to jump right back in it and wants to get to a title fight. So I'm taking the plus 160 there.
All right. Well, tell me about these next fights, Higgins.
Okay, these are the 2 women's fights I was telling you about. Both of them are going to be fantastic. It's Macy Chiasson versus Aspen Ladd and Miranda Maverick versus Macy Barber. And I'll be honest, I'm taking both Macy's. I'm actually doing a theme here. I'm taking all the underdogs in all of my UFC picks here. Let's start with the last one I mentioned, Macy Barber and Miranda Maverick. Macy Barber has just 2 losses. Both of these girls just have 2 losses on their career. But Miranda Maverick only has 2 fights in the UFC. So Macy Barber is much more established in the UFC, has much more understanding of the UFC, and in my opinion, has more respect in terms of the fights. She may be the underdog here, but it's only slated at plus 120. I'm taking her. And then you got Aspen Ladd versus Macy Chiasson, and they're 8-1 versus 9-1. They each only have 1 loss. Now, Macy Chiasson's loss was a unanimous decision back in 2019. Aspen Ladd's loss, if I remember correctly, let me pull it up here real quick. Aspen Ladd's loss was a knockout back in 2019, and she did get a win after that. So she did get a knockout of her own coming out of the knockout, but she hasn't fought again since 2019. It's been 2 years now. Macy Chiasson, she lost in 2019, then fought in 2020 and won, fought in 2021 and won already. So she's coming back a little bit more fresh, fought back in March. I like Macy Chiasson, who's never actually been finished in this scenario, so I'm taking her at plus 165.
All right, makes sense. All the underdogs for Higgins on Saturday night. Let's hop into the Levy Lock pick of the pod. Obviously, you get the honor since I was postponed. So even on a loss, you're the winner, Higgins.
Even on the loss, I win. What do you know? That is just fantastic. Well, I'm going to go with the Cubs versus Cardinals. I'm taking the Cardinals money line at minus 120. We have Adbert Alzolay on the mound for the Cubs facing off against Kwang Young Kim. At least that's what's the probable starters that are listed as of Wednesday night. And so far from what I've seen of Kim this year, yeah, he's 5-5 on the season, but he's pitched really well. He has an ERA under 3. He has 78 innings on him, so he's pitched rather consistently throughout the season. And I think he's going to come out, and it's at home. I think that the St. Louis Cardinals, who are 26-20 at home, are going to fend off the Cubs, especially after Chicago's been giving them a pretty hard time, actually, on Wednesday night. It's still 1-0 as Kyle Hendricks and Adam Wainwright are taking it late into this game. I believe it's in the 8th inning. They don't have the scoreboard up right now. But so they're going to have full bullpens tomorrow, and I trust in the Cardinals more than I trust in the Cubs, especially with the trade deadline looming.
Yeah, the Cardinals have been kind of disappointing this year, Higgins. I'll say it, but I think they'll figure it out. They just seem like they have too much talent, so I'm kind of with you. I'm still backing the Cardinals. I'm not completely out on them yet. And then for my Levy lock, I'm going to the Seattle-Oakland game. We both have bets in this game. Luckily, none of our bets are the same bet, so no losers before we even throw the first pitch out. But I am hopping on this over 8. I'm not buying what Chris Flexen is selling. I'm not buying Sean Manaea can stay in the game very long. So between Manaea and Manaea only going about 5, maybe 6 innings, and Flexen not a guy I'm gonna buy in on very much. Although you pointed out his good record, so he could win the game. He could win the game. I just needed to give up 3 or 4 runs.
And he can do that. He can do that. All right. Well, actually, I'm hoping he doesn't win the game because I'm backing Sean Manaea in that one. So hopefully Flexen doesn't win. But there we go. You got the Levy lock. You got the pick of the pod. Make sure to follow us on social media because, like I said, I'll probably be on that Boston-New York game on Thursday. I'm just waiting for those lineups to come out. So make sure to follow us at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 152 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again after the weekend.